As I'm sure I don't need to tell you, it's a bit of a surprise drive, half an hour earlier than usual. I must say there's tons of guinea fowl. There's only one section of the group. There must be about 100 here or so. And maybe you've heard from this morning's drive, we had the Nkuhuma lions, not even far from here. We're a couple of minutes away. We're going to head straight there now and see if they're still around, have a look at them. Basically, we've got a little plan up our sleeve. Now, the plan is hatched, but whether it's going to happen today, we'll let you know a little bit later. I'll explain more once we get there as well. But for now, we're just going to see if they're there, see what they're up to, talk about it a little bit, and then talk about what we might try and do later on as well as the day goes on. Herman is behind the camera, and Leishan is final control. Let's go look.
Just from my side behind the camera, welcome on the drive, and yeah, I'm looking forward to this afternoon, spending some time with some cats.
Some cats?
Cats.
Basically, we should be out here now for about an hour, unless of course those lions are up to what we hope they'll be up to later on. Then we'll just sort of play it by ear and see how it goes. But if they are still doing what lions typically do this time of day, which is sleeping, then we won't spend too long with them. But we're going to need a bit of time just to talk about what we're planning and how we're going to do it and how we're going to try it really. There's obviously, as with anything wildlife related, so many variables to consider. But you know what? I love letting the cat out the bag, partly because it's such an apt little saying to use when we're talking about lions. Basically, if possible, considering all the different variables, we're going to try and follow these lions as the afternoon goes into evening time as well, and try and stay with them up until the point when they hunt. Some of those variables we're going to discuss now, we're going to talk about now. What's the chances of them hunting tonight, what do they look like, and so on. Also about the concept of the idea, and just to give you a bit of background to it. But like I said, the actual call will only be made later on towards sunset, but we'll go talk about it once we find them, if we find them now. So it's just in the back of my mind, you're playing with what time of day it is where you are. Now, it's not often that you can have a bunch of people on a vehicle with you. They're all in different time zones. In fact, I think many would find it hard to believe that that's possible. But the point is, many of you may be just waking up now. It's just after 2:30. It's about between, I guess, 8:30 and 5:30 in the morning, depending on where you are. If you're in Canada, Europe, or on that beautiful island next to it, where they speak proper English. Welcome on the drive. I hope you've had a lovely Saturday so far, and hope it's been either fun with friends or family, or maybe some sports. I know that lots of our cultures have got similar things in common when it comes to weekend time, things we like to do, and that can vary from spending time with friends to watching some sports to maybe following lions as soon as they get up to into the evening. So the point is, I hope you have a lovely day, morning, afternoon, evening, or whatever part of day it is for you. thanks for choosing to spend some of that time, and maybe a lot of that time later on, with Wild Earth. As you might be guessing, since we are driving off into the bush, this is close to where we had the lions this morning. Let's go see if they're still here. Typically, again, for those of you that may be on your first or second drive with us, lions typically sleep a large part of their day, up to 20 hours of their day, and generally speaking, most of the daylight hours. They're active early morning, late afternoon, and into the evening. So they should be where they were this morning. Let's have a look quickly. It's also not too hot today. It's a bit cooler than the last few days, so maybe they've moved a little bit. Maybe they have. This is the area they were in earlier. There's a bunch of things that look like lions. Yep, and they're doing what lions do best in daytime. Lying around. Just sit here for the moment. As you can see, they're really not doing much. Two here closest to us, that's the two young males. Just let them get happy and used to the fact that we're sitting here. As you can obviously see from the behavior, they don't mind us being close to them and part of what they're doing, even if it is just sleeping. But nonetheless, it's always good when you approach animals just to give it a few minutes before you start moving around and sort of start looking at different ways of seeing them. We'll go around in a little bit. A few minutes time, we'll go and sit on the other side. I see one or two of the lionesses through the bush there. Looks like they might be... Oh, no, they're also flat down again. Only had a brief head up. Now, part of making the decision, and would you like it stick out of the face?
It's perfect. It's fine.
It's a stick face lion. And you can see there's just ears flicking flies, really. Okay, so let's just maybe briefly mention the point of what we want to do today. Then we'll talk a little bit about some of the merits around it and what the chances are relative to what the lions are doing. And then we'll talk a bit more about the other things surrounding this plan. But the basic plan, like that old snaggle tooth. See the tooth sticking out on the side there. Also flat down. Basic plan is that we want to spend as much time as possible with these lions later on. This is sort of towards sunset, but the premise, if you want, of this plan, or the main focal point of it, is to stay with them. Great to spend time with lions and spend more time with them later into the evening, but also to see if, and maybe if they do, go for a hunt. In other words, to partake in that, follow them along, share in that experience of lions moving out in the evening and looking for and possibly going for prey, and literally hunting live with these lions. Well, Karen Jane, and I'm sure many other people would feel the same, but it's nice to know that it's made your day, and seeing lions is always cool. Even if they are being super lazy, keep in mind they're doing their job perfectly at the moment. They're resting, they're conserving energy for what might come later on in the day and into the evening. And I was just asking what pride this is. And I was just thinking again, if Karen or Colleen especially, I know that both of them have got extensive background on the prides. As far as I know, this is the Nkuhuma pride. But if you guys could send us just some basic information again. I've never seen sort of aware of it or consciously the windmill pride, and I know that for a while even amongst the Juma guides there were confusion about the Nkuhumas and the windmill pride. So it would be awesome a little bit later, but Herman and myself will go back to camp before we go out this evening. I'd love to be able just to catch up on the two a little bit just as a comparison. But the Nkuhumas, not all of them, there were only 6 lions here this morning. The 2 males here closer to us that are doing nothing, and the 4 females further back that are doing nothing at the moment. So 6 of them, and it's not the full pride. There should be, last I saw them, I saw 9 of them together. Rexon was saying this morning it should be 10. I've seen these lions only once a while back in Buffelshoek, actually north of us, when I was out with friends of us then. But the Nkuhuma pride, meaning coming in from Kruger. But yeah, just to get back to the hunting point, is so that's the basic plan, is to spend that time with them, obviously relative to all conditions, considering where we are and how we are and the habitat and everything else. We're gonna give it our best shot tonight. Now that's a very thrilling experience. I've been fortunate enough to have hunted with lions on many occasions where you follow them and you're part of the pride, in a non-invasive way, both to them and the prey. Of course, as we can see from the behavior, these lions don't mind us being around, and even when they move, there's not really much of a concern or consideration really for us. They do what they want to do. There's something very, I guess, primarily thrilling about hunting with lions and being part of that process. Now, we'll talk about the kill just now. There's obviously 2 parts to a hunt, and it's the hunt itself, which can be either successful or not, ending with lions having food or not. And we'll talk about the kill part of it. Again, I've been fortunate enough to have been in various positions where I've seen hunts, successful hunts with large animals, even giraffe, buffalo and so on. It's intense and unique and amazing experience to be part of as well. But the hunt itself, the anticipation of predators moving out, going out into the night, literally, the apex predator, in this case lions, is very thrilling. There's that whole excitement and nerves and adrenaline and everything that goes with it, that ultimately, I think, because we can associate in so many ways, being predators ourselves, we can in many ways associate it. In many cases these days, as modern man, we don't often get to be that aware or that in touch of our, I'm almost going to say, our predatory primal ancestry, if that makes any sense. And that's part of it that makes the hunt very exciting. Of course, if we're fortunate enough and in a position to experience the actual climax of the hunt, or the actual kill, that is something that is extremely emotional. I've been through a number of them, and they've all left a permanent imprint in my memory. I can remember all of them still clearly, and also the people that shared them with me. In many cases, people from around the world like yourself on safari. It had I don't like to use the word about it. Something that some people could be uncomfortable with. I'll tell you a few stories about that. I'll maybe tell you one of them just now, and then I'll tell you a few more of them tonight. But I've had people in extreme emotional turmoil almost, where they're sitting there and in many ways they're mesmerized by what's going on. In some ways they even, I don't think I've ever come across people being appalled, but certainly they have a struggle where they mesmerized in a, and it is something that I guess simply it's wild. It happens. These lions hunt every few days. We're going to talk about that part of it just now. They hunt about, on average, probably once a week. It's not something you go out and do 3-4 times every evening, but they need to eat. The same as the impala walks up and eats a piece of grass, or maybe as a more comparative example, an elephant bull walks up to a beautiful tree that's grown for 100 years and pushes it over in 2 seconds. Eats the roots. It's all part of the circle of things. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is that it's not something that's glorified or sensationalized, anything like that. It is just something that happens, and there is an emotional experience or emotional journey in it that is fascinating as a human to experience and to explore. And that's what we hope to do tonight. Now, whether it's possible or not tonight, that's of course another question. I'd guess not, I guess. I said that maybe nothing is possible. They're not going to do anything, but I think definitely they will get active towards sunset, and I think there's a very good chance that they will hunt tonight. Obviously, there's a lot of things to consider. If they were lying here and their bellies were so full that they couldn't lie properly, and they were panting because they're so hot from all the digesting energy they need, then I'd say no point. They're not going to hunt tonight. They're also not in that sort of starved looking way. You know, sometimes lions can look a little bit like they haven't eaten for a week or two, and then obviously it becomes a very urgent matter for them. But I'm looking at these lions and looking at their bellies as they're sleeping there. I'd say probably their last meal would have been, if it was a big one, 3-4 days ago. If it was a small one, like let's say maybe an impala, between the 6 of them, which is obviously just the equivalent of canopy, and things that is a very good night, and I'd say probably a 60%, maybe more probability of them making a kill, and I'd say probably an 80%, 90% probability that they will go off on the hunt. So a very good chance that they'll do that. So having assessed that, that's a good thing. There's no point in planning to do something like that with lions that are so full that they do anything other than sleeping. Also in a good area, there is a lot of game in this area. We're not far from quarantine, we're not far from Treehouse Dam. And what we'll have to do is a little bit later on, here towards sunset, between 5 and 6 Central African time, come back out here again. Also obviously there's some game drive vehicles out from Nkuhuma, and see what they're doing and how space looks. We'll try those females a bit. Then once we have an idea towards sunset, we'll come and have a look at them and see what their sort of energy levels are like. Then we'll make a call. So let's say around sunset. We'll have to put a time to it. We'll be back out here and we'll make a call. And if it's on, then it's going to be an interesting mission. Obviously Adam and myself and Vision from the directing side will stay with these cats as far as we can, both in terms of the physical terrain, but also in terms of which land and whose land we're on and so on, and just stay with it. Now again, I don't know how many of you, look at our beautiful shoes, huh?
Yeah.
Hey, gorgeous. Don't know how many of you have had the opportunity to follow lions on the hunt. But it is very cool. And I would also suggest that if we did go for it, any of your friends and people that might want to join for the safari should try and join for that experience. Let's just quickly move around. I know you're following her, but she's just going to greet the other lionesses a bit. So join them where they're lying down. It's not great hive of activity there. Nice, it's still home on. I see she's just giving me a bit of a lion's eye there. Yeah. Well, as always, thank you for the emails coming in and the messages. Oh, look at her. What's she looking at? Something. Oh, there it goes. It was a little raptor flying over that got her attention. But yeah, thank you for the emails coming in, and I'm still going to be sitting here now for another 40 minutes or so, so more conversations and questions and topics will be interesting. But Sheila just saying it's lovely for her to see, and I'm sure many people in the week unfortunately can't come and drive. I think that's one of the reasons I like doing what I do, is I can go and game drive often. In fact, I have to. But it's nice to know that you're enjoying it, Sheila, in your specific case, being able to join us on the weekend. And I must say it's even nicer to be able to share something like this with you. It's not every day that we have lions in our area. So it's a pleasure for everyone that can join us today. As always, I always like going on drive. And there's obviously a nice special touch to it when you can sit here and look at one of the most beautiful and regal of wildlife, or of animals, or of whatever you want to call them. Big five predators. But lions are always very cool to spend time with. And Jerry was just saying that lioness with a funny tooth, she's actually typically referred to as snaggletooth. I feel a bit bad not knowing this pride more intimately. It's a purely exposure or time frame that we spend with them. We used to see them a lot. I mean, going back 2 years when we still drove the tank around the bush, and this is in the even earlier pioneering days of Wild Earth. We used to see them a lot. It used to be a big pride, over 20 lions at one stage. And then the Mapocho males came in and changed the numbers. A lot of the cubs were killed. Only a few of these young males have survived, and the pride has changed dramatically since then. When I see that one young male has just gotten up, I don't know if she's going to come over or not. You see that sort of little blonde, fluffy mane developing in the neck. But yeah, hopefully again with winter, maybe they spend more time around and we get to know them more. We certainly will tonight. Smell greeting there, a little sniff. There's obviously the direct benefit of knowing each other very well, but also always reaffirming that bond with smelling each other and grooming each other and so on. So all these lions actually will have a variety of all the other lions in the pride smell on them. And that whisker area plays a large role. There's a lot of scent glands on the facial whisker area. So you'll often see lions rubbing their faces against each other. I'm sure in part because it feels nice. There's a nice tactile social bonding aspect to it. But also it does mean that they sort of scent mark each other to a large extent. There's always affirming that bond in the group, which is important on all aspects for them. It literally is important down to the very basics of survival. Sometimes protecting each other if it comes to maybe chasing hyenas away and so on, but to a large extent hunting together, procuring food for each other, making sure that as a group we can get enough food that we can all eat well. And then not only that, but also protect that food from other predators. Bugging her there. But Dale just asking if the males are cubs or the cubs are males. Just trying to think how the implication of that question would vary depending on which one you put first. Dale, I'm not joking at you, but it's these two cubs. I guess you could call them juveniles, maybe rather. They're about not quite 2 years old, but they'll be 20 months old now, maybe 18 months, maybe actually more 18 months. I'm just looking at their size. There used to be a huge amount of cubs in the Nkuhuma pride, of which many unfortunately either got killed directly by the Mapogos or perished in the stress and conditions afterwards. With quite a lot more mane development, but that also depends a lot on conditions and food and stress levels and all those kind of things. And as much as these lions look beautiful again, 6 months ago or so we saw them a few times. I remember the first time that Leishan saw them when she was on drive on camera was not far from me on Rebecca's road, and they looked very haggard, very stressed, very disturbed almost with everything they'd been through. And certainly since then they've filled out nicely again and regained confidence. But these males have had a few hard parts of their life already over the last year and a half. Lazy days, eh? That's what lions do well. Well, Valerie just asking there, how's it, Valerie? We often say hello to people maybe on their first or second drive, and we often mention lots of people have been on drives for a long time. Valerie certainly has been part of Wild Earth for a long time. Long enough to remember Blondie and Dozy. Now, before the Mapojos, they were the two males dominant with this pride, and would have fathered, well, these cubs, but also lots of other cubs that didn't make it. Blondie was killed by the Mapojos close to Chitwa side of southeast of here. Dozy managed to stay around for a longer time, or around for a longer time, and as you know, if he's dead or not. But to be honest with you, I don't know for a fact. I haven't had a specific, someone said this lion was seen dead or not, but certainly having followed all the fights and lions and activity that was going on, and not having heard about him for such a long time, I presume that he's dead. But I don't actually know that for a specific fact. About it, but during that whole time when the Mapojos were taking over, it would have been incredible to have had the sort of terrestrial capabilities, in other words, the human side of what can go where kind of organizing. But if we could have just stayed with those Mapojos, imagine for a couple of months, just followed them around every day whenever they were active, just to see where they go, what they do. The amount of ground these lions covered would have been incredible, and they still do. When they cover ground roaring and scent marking their territories, they cover huge distances. It would have been fascinating to have followed them on a daily basis, like it would be if we decide to at sunset stick with these lionesses, spend an evening with them, see what they get up to, and very likely go on a hunt with them. Hi again, Bob, from Orlando. This is lots of you busy waking up for your day in America. And the lions is asking about the, what shall we call it, the sanitary habits of lions. Actually, interesting bit of behavior that you noticed and mentioned to us there about the wild dogs last night, covering up the feces from the young ones. Interesting that they do that. Obviously, hygiene is something that's important to all animals, especially when you've got lots of little puppies running around all over the place. But yeah, Bob, certainly lions are very much like that as well. There's a very polite and without going into the discussion too much, I guess, but there's a practical aspect to it. If one of these lions wanted to defecate now, which I don't think they've been doing too much, like I said, the stomachs are looking relatively empty and flat, so again, a good sign for a hunt tonight. But if one of them did want to defecate or even urinate, they'd get up and walk away a little bit from the group. They wouldn't just stay there. Excuse me, a bit of a frog in my throat. And even cover it up sometimes, but generally speaking, just go away from the group. More is, you can quite often with them even see, depending on the lions, but on the individual, but you can quite often see a bit of a, I was going to say like a dignity about it, or maybe an indignity by being watched. So they prefer to go, even if there's a vehicle around, or I've certainly experienced in that way sometimes, to go a little bit where they're not seen by the other cats, but also to an extent by anything else around. So yeah, there's a certain politeness or manners or habit, whichever of those you want to call it, about their sort of sanitary or toiletry behavior. Incredible smell though, just by the way. Lions, especially if they've been eating a buffalo for a day or two, you cannot imagine what it smells like. It is pure carnivore. There's no doubt in one's mind that that's something that eats meat. Again, I think it goes somewhere back into our primal memories. Well, it's just after 3 o'clock now, so just another welcome again on the drive if you join us for the normal drive time. As you can see, we're spending times with some sleeping lions. Does that tie in now? Times. We're spending some times. Lions with times. Sorry, my brain was maybe in the same mode as these lions. But anyway, welcome on the drive. That's actually what I wanted to say. We started a little bit earlier this afternoon. We came out here at 2:30. We've been sitting with these cats. Herman is on the camera with me on the vehicle here. My name is Peter, and we've got Leishan in final control. And the reason we came out here was just to assess a little bit, I guess. Come and look at what these cats are up to, and also to let you know that we're planning it at the moment, and it looks certainly more on plans formulating into something that will take action later on, is to spend a lot of time with these lions tonight, as far as is possible, in all aspects, and see if we can't join them on the hunt. And that call we'll make. We'll tell you if the hunt is on or not at around sunset. We're going to go back to camp in a little bit just to save our batteries so that we have as much time as possible going into the evening. And we'll make that call and obviously let you know and get it out in all the different ways of communicating. But also I want to encourage any and all of you that might have friends that haven't done something like this before, and I can promise you your friends haven't done something like this before, because it's never been done like this before. There's never been a live hunt with lions, unless maybe they've been out on safari, and in that case it would certainly be something they can associate with. But anyway, I'm rambling on. Point is that towards sunset we'll make the call. We'll tell you if it's on or not, and if it is, and you're going to follow it a little bit, then also want to encourage you to let anyone else know that you think might enjoy it. Now, of course, there's a lot of variables in it. The first variables we've covered already. We discussed earlier that these lions do look a little bit lean, and I'd say they're actually in that perfect stage for a hunt. They're not lean to the point of being hungry yet. That'll only be in about 2 days from now. But they're lean in that point where I'm sure they would have made some attempt at hunting last night, maybe even caught something small between the 6 of them. It would have been a little snack. But in terms of their condition now and their energy levels and all of those things combined, I'd say tonight is an excellent night for that. So very good chance it will go ahead with it later on, but we'll make that call again if we come back here later on. And that's basically the plan. We wanted to come out here and just have a look at it and discuss it a little bit and talk about the various angles of it. One of the things we discussed earlier as well, if you've just joined us, is the very aspect of going on a hunt. I know there's been some interesting and heated discussions over the last few days with the new slap show we've got in the evenings, and I think I'm going to be bringing too many of those topics onto the game drive. It's because there's certain times to talk about certain things, and game drive for me has always been something we do for pleasure and for relaxation and for sharing and for passion, not so much for debate and controversy and arguing, even though because we do these things for the first reasons, we need to do the second, if you understand what I mean with that. But the point is that there might be some sort of personal or internal turmoil for some people following animals in a hunt. I've certainly seen it. I've been fortunate enough to have been on hunts often with lions, and even been in a number of successful ones where they ended up catching their food, killing an animal. It's another way of looking at it, but ultimately, harvesting their resources so that they can survive as a species. And it's always been an emotional journey for every single person I've ever taken along with that. It's also always been an emotional roller coaster for many of them, where you go from the elation of the thrill of the kill, which is something we all feel, even if we tell ourselves we don't. Every single one of us are human ultimately, and there are some deeply seated aspects to us. We can call it our subconscious if we want, we can call it our phonetic memory if we want, whatever we want, but there's an aspect of us that are still hunters. And then of course there's also other aspects to it that makes those experiences quite hard. But I can promise you one thing, no matter how you feel about it now, if we do have that experience tonight, if we follow these lions and we do have not only a hunt with them, but actually see them making the kill and getting there successfully, if that is possible, if it happens tonight, and it is, because we're going to try, we'll certainly give you a definite answer on that at sunset, but I think there's a good chance. Then it will be something you'll never forget. And I don't like to promise things, as you know, with wildlife I'm always careful about promising things, but if we do experience that tonight, I promise you, you will never forget it. And I can also promise you that it won't be a negative memory. It won't be something that you'll be sorry you did afterwards. At the time, like I said, I can again guarantee you there's going to be some experience with it. But it is good. It's not something that is bad. Well, as always, thank you very much. Not to interrupt your chatting, Karen, but nice to know you're giving some background information on these cats. And Colleen also, just let me know, thanks again for sending through that information. I know that you've put it out before, and if I was a bit quicker with my fingers on computers, I could just go and find it. But thanks for sending it through. I'm going to have a look at that information, both on the windmill and the Nkuhuma pride when I get back to camp in a bit. It's always nice to know that apart from everyone else that's coming on drive, there's a few people that really in some ways know more about some of the animals that we sometimes see than I do. Karen and Colleen certainly keep an extensive finger on all the cat movements, and especially the lion prides of this whole general areas that I can't even get into. So thanks for that. And then Vigets, Peter, some other information as well coming in from Germany. Peter just letting us know in May, the last time that we saw these lion. And time that we had a number of good sightings with him, and the one was very close to our camp, where we saw the Styx pride earlier and then saw the Nkuhuma pride, all of them walking down the road with a limping male. Better just saying, at that stage we saw 3 female juveniles or sub-adults, big cubs, depending on how to describe them. Probably sub-adults or juveniles would be the right way at this stage. 3 sub-adult females, 3 sub-adult males, and 4 lionesses. So we saw then. I was presenting the drive. I think I remember Leishan was on that one drive with me. It was a brilliant drive, all the cats. But Peter, where the others are at the moment, I don't know. We've got 4 lionesses here and 2 male cubs. One of them is limping. Again, it's difficult to know what to say. I don't know exactly where they've been recently. I know that just the other night, when was it? I can barely remember what day it is most of the time. Last night or the night before last, they had these lions just north of Oitel. I remember I said that they might come past the waterhole. They had them at Tamboti Dam just inside Buffelshoek. I remember that someone at some stage on the radio mentioned 9 lions. So 2 days ago they still saw all 9 to my knowledge. Where the others are at the moment, I don't know. Maybe we find that out tonight. Well, thanks, Leishan. Just the email coming in directly to Final Control, but also I believe there's a bit of chat going on in the chat rooms surrounding this topic, and I fully understand the context of your question, Connie, and I'm not making fun of the question. I'm just going to have some fun with the question, but I do understand your context. When this hunt will happen is impossible to say. It might be, if something weird happens, it might be in 5 minutes, although that's highly unlikely. It's more likely to be around or just after set. It might even be tomorrow evening only, and that we won't know. So to say when it happens, but why I said I'm having some fun with it is that typically people think of a hunt and a kill as the same thing. Tonight we're going to hunt with these lions if it's possible. In other words, we're going to spend time with them as they go out into the evening, setting out on what should be a hunt, judging from their condition, and we're going to hunt with them. It obviously needs to, at some stage, it might do so an hour or 2 after sunset, it might do so later, much later into the evening towards midnight, it might happen in the early hours of tomorrow morning, or it might only happen in 2 days from now. That's also possible. But Connie, what you mean is when we're going to follow them, I presume, or when this sort of adventure or this hunt sets off. That call we're going to have to make closer towards sunset. Typically that's around the time that these cats get. Let everyone know in all the ways we can, tweeting and getting it out in all the different social communication systems we've got. It's one of the brilliant things about Wild Earth is our ability to talk to each other, and we'll sort of say yay or nay. We'll say if it's on or not towards sunset. If it is, then I'd suggest come along if you can. Now again, just to explain some of the practical aspects of it, which is why we're going to head back to camp very shortly. These lions aren't going anywhere too soon. I know I just said the hunt is possibly going to happen in 5 minutes, and that is a possibility. I mean, I might just take Herman and chuck him off the vehicle. Just kidding. I'd never do that to lions, of course. No, sorry, I'm joking around here. But the possibility that, let's say, a random zebra comes walking past you now, it's not impossible. It's not likely. In fact, if it did happen, it's very likely that the zebra will see the lions before they see it. And if they did try and stalk it, it's very likely that it would escape because it's daylight and it can be seen. So it's it's not likely, but that can happen. It's these random things happen. But typically, 90% of the time, lions get active around sunset, and they start getting active into that sort of early dusk and early part of the evening when it's nice and dark. Then they've got the benefit of the concealment of the night and the darkness. They've got the benefit of great eyesight, like other cats do. So their advantage and therefore their likelihood or chance of having a successful hunt, in other words, food at the end of it, is much higher. So going to answer that question that again many might be asking is, we're going to decide at sunset time. In fact, we'll be out here, if we can't be with the lions at that time, I can promise you that at least for sunset we'll be looking at a lovely sunset somewhere and decide the things that are going to, and I think the chance that they will be hunting is very good. Whether they're going to actually make a kill tonight or not, I don't know. We're also going to and I think that's what I was trying to explain at the beginning of my ramble, is that heading back to camp just now so that we can conserve battery time, so that we have more time with them tonight. So tonight what we'll do is we'll follow them. If they get active and we can stay with them, we'll keep following them. If at some stage they stop and sleep, which they do often as well, even early in the evening, and they fall over and they lie down and they take a nap, then we might actually go back to the dog den or something else back in final control, and switch the vehicle off for a little while, stay with them, keep you updated maybe over the radio every now and again, and conserve batteries again until they get active. But ultimately commit to staying with them as long as we can into the night as well. So there's an adventure on many different levels coming up tonight, and lots of it we can't predict because we're going to have to just go with what happens. And as always here at Wild Earth, do it all live and have it all shared with you. So all in all, lots of potential adventure and excitement towards sunset tonight. Well, there was the great excitement of one tail flicking a fly away. These lions really are flat cat, as we call it. Leishan, I think if there's any other specific questions or something that we can have a quick look at, otherwise I'm going to wrap it up for the moment and head back to camp, conserve batteries, and there's one or two other things we've still got to do before tonight, and then we'll head back out here again later in the afternoon. Yeah, Annette, interesting question or interesting comment. Annette's just saying that she's heard that lions often yawn from hunger or because they're hungry, not necessarily because they're tired. Yeah, Annette, I must be honest with you, it's not something I've ever heard up on behaviorally from looking at lions and spending time with them. At the same time, they don't always yawn because they're tired either. Quite often yawns with most mammals actually are like a passive-aggressive movement, sort of just showing your weapon, showing your teeth. That's the one aspect. Another big aspect of yawns for a lot of animals, again, and especially lions, when they start waking up and start getting ready for their night, is to get more oxygen into their system, same as for humans. You'll find often after a long sleep like this, the first signs will be them just slowly getting their heads up and starting to lick their paws, making sure that their feet are nice and clean and ready for a night of activity. Grooming themselves, grooming each other, playing a little bit if there's young lions, and then often more and more yawning, getting more oxygen into the system, and then a few big stretches and getting all the muscles nice and sort of ready for the activities. And it's just stopped. The one that's just to the right, I just saw suddenly the back leg was kicking because he's chasing a zebra or something. Right, well I think we're gonna let sleeping cats lie. Is that dogs?
Yeah.
I apologize for the cheesy stuff sometimes, but like cliches, often it's so true and it works so well. We're going to leave these lions where they are. They're not going to go anywhere in a hurry. The game drives will be coming out a bit later. We'll be keeping our ear on the radio if there's any movements or anything. If something really comes up and they get moving, we might come out earlier. But alternatively, we'll be out here towards sunset time. That's been significant time. And we'll come and have a look and see what they're up to and see how much activity there is or not. And if it looks like they're ready to go on the hunt, we'll go along with them. And we'd like to take as many of you along with us on that as possible. So keep the ear on the railway line, so to speak, or on the ground. We will get that message out there in all the ways that we can. And one of those ways will also be you and your friends talking to each other, which is what we do anyway. So we'll let you know a little bit later, but for the moment, Herman and myself here in the vehicle, we're going to head back to camp, go and let the Jigga rest a little bit, make sure these batteries are nice and full for tonight. And come sunset time and tonight as well into the evening, will be not definitely it, but I think there's a very good chance that we will be following these cats around and seeing what they get up to. So until I see you then, enjoy your afternoon, enjoy your Saturday, or your morning, I guess, many of you. And enjoy the wild dogs, enjoy whatever else is coming your way. And I look forward to seeing you out here a little bit later. It's going to be something different. It's going to be something exciting. And if we do manage to not only hunt with them, but ultimately see or share with them when they make a kill, I can promise you it's something that you will never forget. And we'll talk more about it then. There's lots to talk about. See you later.